March the 29th, 2025. Guys, so finally getting a break from the rain here. Saturday, 12:30 p.m. Central Time in central Mississippi. And the sun's starting to peek out. It's real nice. Can't complain. It's not too hot. And we're going to get it, we are getting much needed rain for the gardens coming up. People are starting to get ready to plant and disking up and everything else. So you always need this rain. It's so much better than the forest fires that we see and the droughts, things like that. Now, back to the video. This is now a world-famous image. It's one of the longer images of all the SAR Plus images. I say SAR Plus because there was about 4 technologies involved. We've been through that. The top, in the center, you see the 2 larger pyramids, and here you see the smaller one. You got some other buildings there. And there's been a great deal of excitement, guys, because of what these discoveries mean. To a lot of people, including me and you, the technology is a great mystery, a great wondrous thing on how it was done and why it was done, all of that. You know, we're looking for those answers. But what about on the spiritual side of information, the value of the knowledge behind some of this, not just the technical information, but because this is being exposed, what else can it reveal besides technical knowledge? That may be more important than any other aspect of this thing. And what I want to do, it's kind of hard to approach this on just one level. So I'm going to throw it out there. In other words, it may throw some folks off. It may not. I know it's definitely going to cause a little bit of ruckus, but maybe not in a bad way. But it's going to open some eyes also. And I think that's the important part of end-time information. Again, not the technology necessarily, or that may not even be super important. But the knowledge that's coming from these, again, discoveries could be invaluable. And what I want to talk about here is we're going to go through some things. And I want to talk about the people that lived a very long time in the Old Testament. So just bear with me and let's go down this hole together. And guys, I put this in a PDF form. All of the information I have in this PDF is not exactly pertinent to the video, but I may share this thing in the next day or so. I'll put a link where you can download it because it's got information that I'm looking at from different angles, compiling it to see to where if I can fit the puzzle pieces together, if that makes any sense. Anyway, so if I do download the PDF or put it where you can, again, you're going to have to kind of put it together yourself in a certain sense. Just like I said yesterday, it can be quite a headache when you get this much info. What we're looking at, though, are the people that lived the longest in the Old Testament. And just bear with me. I've got a reason for going here. Methuselah at the top, 969 years. Now, this is not the list in order of when they were born or who was the oldest at that time, but how many years they lived. In other words, Methuselah lived 969 years, the oldest man on the Bible. He was Noah's grandfather, and he lived up until the year of the great flood. But he said Methuselah was, again, Noah's grandfather, and his father walked so closely with God that God took him. Methuselah died the same year as the flood, living to 969 years of age. And the great question is, what has happened to mankind to where now we barely make it to 70? You know what I mean? You got some that make it to 100, but not 900, not 800, not 700 years. What has happened? Or is it something a little different? Then you had Jared, who was the descendant of Seth, 962 years. Jared fathered Enoch at 162 years old, and again, it lived to be 962, Genesis 5:18-20. Then Noah. He was the last of the long-living antediluvian patriarchs, guys. Noah lived for 350 years after the flood. He lived to be 950 years old. At Noah's birth, his father said, "May he bring us relief from our work and the painful labor of farming this ground that the Lord has cursed." And that curse appeared or happened in the Garden of Eden. Then Adam, 930 years. He was the first human being. That's why I'm saying he was there before Methuselah. So it's not who was born first, just who lived longer in this list. He was the first human, again, Adam, 930 years, who was designed to live forever. Adam ended up only living to 930 years. They're saying not very long when compared to eternity. That little trick and the deception in the garden, I think, ended that eternal life, and he was cast out and was going to have to survive from the the sweat of his brow. Remember all of that? Anyway, but he was designed to live forever. But things changed after that. Then Seth, 912 years old, a brother to Cain and Abel. He would have been a true brother to Abel and a half-brother to Cain. The only other child of Adam and Eve to be mentioned in the Bible by name, even named him Seth, for she said, "God has granted me another son in place of Abel, who Cain killed." There was also a Pharaoh, I think it was, named Seth. This is Genesis 4:25. Then Kenan, 910 years old, a grandson to Seth, fathered Mahalalel. Enos, 905 years old, he was a son of Seth, who fathered him when he was 105 years old, which makes him a grandson, of course, of Adam and Eve. Mahalalel, 895 years old, he was an ancestor of Noah, and he fathered Jared. He lived until when Noah was 234 years old. So Noah lived before and after the flood, but he was the last, or that group was the last of these people that lived this long. Once they died off, there were no more as we know it. There's a reason I'm going here. Then you had Lamech, 777 years, the son of Methuselah and father to Noah. Lamech died 5 years before the flood, according to genealogical accounts. Adam would have still been alive for the first 56 years of Lamech's life. And then Enoch, now it was only 365 years, but he did not die on earth. We don't know what happened. He was taken, remember? He was the father of Methuselah. Enoch is described in Genesis 5:24 as someone who was walked in close fellowship with God. Then one day he disappeared because God took him. Because of this, the inclusion of Enoch on this list is contestable, they're saying, but they think he deserves it. Enoch may end up being one of the witnesses before this is all said and done, one of the two. Anyway, 365, that was the time he was here. We don't know how old he is, right? Now, why is this important, and how, with the knowledge that we're getting from the pyramids, why would it have anything to do with this at all? Let's just keep reading. Now, before anybody has a breakdown, let me say this. Men were appointed, according to the Bible, to have but one life. But what about some people that may have not been the same type human or the same type creature that we were? It doesn't say they were not appointed one life. And we're talking about possible reincarnation here, not in human form, but in some of these demigods and other people. Bear with me. Emerald Tablet, this is just an excerpt. It says, "Their time, after time, placed they their first created bodies, so that they may be filled with the spirit of life. 100 years out of each 1,000 must the life-giving light flame flame forth on their bodies." What did they just say? 900 years out of 1,000, they can walk. They can be here. Then they've got to take 100-year break out of that 1,000 years to regenerate. It says quickening, awakening the spirit of life. There in the circle from aeon to aeon sit the great masters. That's what we're talking about. Whether you could call some fallen angels, some Just angels or messengers or men of great renown, like in the book of Jude, whatever you want to call them. And why did some of the patriarchs also have the same lifespan? 900 years or so, or maybe shorter, depending on something happened, but the average years. But here we go. 100 years out of each 1,000 must the life-giving light flame forth on their bodies, quickening, awakening the spirit of life. There in the circle, from aeon to aeon, sit the great masters, living a life not known among men. They were not men as we are. There in the halls of life they lie sleeping. Free flows their soul through the bodies of men. Now, this is not the only place or the only sections of history that it talks about this, because we have the pantheon of gods, both Greek and Roman, and there's some very important clues there too. But here we are, 900-year lifespan for this group. Before the flood, they were all born before the flood. So were a lot of other people born before the flood that didn't make it. Now, we cannot talk about Egypt and or Israel without talking about Rome or Greece. It was all involved, the temples, everything, guys, the gods, the pantheon of gods. But throughout history, we've seen the demigods moved from one person or persona to the next. Names have changed, but not the means of operation or the mode of operation. The Greek god Zeus came before the Roman god Jupiter. That's because the Greeks came before the Romans, and Zeus was 700 years here before Jupiter. A lot of people say that's the equivalent, and it may be because of this rejuvenation that we're looking at with these men of great renown. Renown, guys. In other words, the Greek god Zeus, his equivalent was Jupiter, that came right here. Zeus, the Greek sky god, emerged in the ancient Greek mythology significantly earlier than Jupiter. The Roman equivalent was Zeus being described by Homer in the 8th century BC, while Jupiter was recorded by Virgil in the 1st century BC, a difference of over 700 years. You see that in the dates that we just looked at from the Old Testament. But first you had Zeus, then you had Jupiter, the Roman equivalent, 700 years apart. Do you think maybe something happened, a rejuvenation, because they have the same MO? Then Poseidon and Neptune, Poseidon first, then Hades, then Pluto, Hera, then Juno, Athena, then Minerva, Apollo, then Apollo. Very important. This one doesn't change. Where else have you heard that name? Revelation. Ares was later to become Mars, and I think it was after the rejuvenation. Aphrodite became Venus, Hermes Mercury, Artemis Diana, Demeter Ceres, and Dionysus Bacchus. You've heard those names, the Roman Greek names, but the Greek names came first. Right now, where are these people? If they can do this every 1,000 years, which it looks like the technology was there at that time, but if they can come back in different forms, like Zeus came back as Jupiter 700 years later, are we seeing that in the political systems, guys? Like the real deep state, not the puppet deep state that these people of great renown and of old are controlling, the puppet masters. I'm talking about the actual persona of these people, because a lot of them were eternal until, again, things started happening. And then, of course, some were locked for 1,000 years in that pit. A lot of other things that are coincidental in this situation. And of all verses 9:1 in Revelation, they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon, but in the Greek tongue, his name is Apollyon. Apollyo. Guys, that is who we're dealing with here. His name was not changed, and he seems to be a very important player in this. Now, who was given the keys originally to hell, to the gates of Hades? It was Christ in the early chapters of the book of Revelation. Then we had a star fall from heaven with that key. Something, isn't it? Now, we're talking about people that lived a long time. We're talking about people that had certain powers. You look at Moses, you look at the staff of him and Aaron, and the staff of the other, I guess you would call them semi-magicians in the Egyptian court. But who was thought Moses? The Bible specifically in 1 Kings 6:1 suggests that Exodus occurred 480 years before Solomon's 4th year of reign, leading to a calculation of around 1446 BCE before the Exodus. Now, the name is interesting alone by itself, Thutmose, but he never called himself son of the king. Why was that? It was believed that it was because he was born in a non-royal family to a woman named Sensenab and an unknown father. Now, who was Moses? There's more there. You can read it. Who was Moses? Moses' mother, Jochebed, was a Hebrew woman living in slavery in Egypt before the Exodus. She was the daughter of a Levite, unknown, and she married Amram, another Levite. According to Exodus 6:20, Jochebed married her nephew, thus she was Amram's aunt as well as his wife. We know that Moses was born several years after their marriage because she already had a daughter. They think that was probably Miriam. Anyway, both of them, Moses and Moses. And where was Moses? Where did he end up? Where did he lead the people out of? It was Egypt. Neither one were born from a royal mother. Neither one knew for sure who their father was. Both lived a very long time. Now, I hope you see where I'm going with this subject. I'm just touching the top of it. But we're talking about the world is really excited about the technological aspect of what we're seeing under the pyramids. But the spiritual aspect to me is more important because it was something hidden by our Father in heaven for us to search out. Do you understand what I'm saying now? It's all coming to a head. How did the people live that long? You want to tell me? Because they were different. It was a different race of people. And that's what we're dealing with the pantheon of the Demigods and all of that, guys. It was just the way history was handed down. They never really explained that. But there were attempts to do it. Look at the book of Jude. Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that you should earnestly contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints. For there are certain men crept in unaware, who were before of old ordained to this condemnation, ungodly men, turning the grace of our God into lasciviousness and denying the only Lord God and our Lord Jesus Christ. I will therefore put you in remembrance, though you once knew how that the Lord, having saved the people out of where? The land of Egypt, afterward destroyed them that believed not. That verse always reminds me of the 1,000-year millennium. A lot of people can make it that far. But at the end of that 1,000 years, if your name is not in that book, you're not going to make it. Just saying. And the angels which kept what? Not their first estate, but they left their own habitation. What are we talking about? Fallen angel technology, the circle of life, and the way they rejuvenated, and how did the ancient patriarchs tie into that? Again, the angels which kept not their first estate, but left their own habitation, he hath reserved in everlasting chains. Where? In that pit, under darkness, unto the judgment of the great day. When that pit is opened for a short time. When is judgment day? It's not when you die. It's not during the time when Christ sets his foot down on this planet. It's after the 1,000-year millennium. Read in the book of Revelation. Then the books are opened. And at first no one appeared to be worthy of opening the books until the Lamb stepped up. Darkness, in chains. Where? In a pit, unto the judgment of the great day. We don't know how far that is away from us. We don't know where we are at in that particular section of Revelation, but we're getting very close. Again, trying to drop a few pearls, and maybe they'll grow, maybe they won't, guys. But if you can come up with a better explanation, I would love to hear it, because no one knows it all, right? But when you get together and put your heads together, you can get a lot closer, especially when you approach this with your Father in mind. It's a heads up, guys. Be safe.